Welcome, Army fans. This is Joe Iacono with GoBlackKnights.com, along with a very special guest, new co-offensive coordinator, but not new to the Army staff, Matt Drinkall. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Tell me a little bit about how it feels now to be the co-OC at Army and have a little bit more freedom in maybe helping out Coach Thatcher and calling plays and designing the offense a little bit.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's a pretty exciting time to be a part of Army football. It'll sound like a lot of cliched pieces, but this is just to be a part of a program like this is unlike anywhere I've ever been. I just finished my 20th season coaching, and there's nothing like Army football, and especially working for Jeff Monken. I mean, the quality of kids that you're with, the quality of people you're surrounded with every day, it's so fun to be a part of. And such a rewarding process. I mean, I have a hard time ever even putting it into words. And I know that probably sounds cliche, but that's the truth. I mean, working with these kids every day is the most rewarding experience you could ever ask for in any line of work. And then my background until coming to Army is all much more aligned with what we're getting ready to do. So schematically, this will be a pretty substantial transition for us. There's some core fundamentals, obviously, that when a Jeff Monken team is going to always possess, but this is, the gun stuff and the no huddle. That was my whole background prior to arriving at West Point.
Right. And we're going to definitely dig into the details of some of the scheme and everything as we go along. And, I think you make a good point about how exciting it is to be able to coach the West Point cadets at Army, over the number of years you have. And it's really cool how Coach Monken's been able to maintain a lot of his staff, and how he stayed there now going on his 10th season ought to be pretty inspiring to a lot of coaches who are looking for a great place to come work. So,
yeah, no doubt. There's nobody like Coach Monken. He's as good as good of a coach and as person as there is, period. He and I are both from the Midwest. He's from Joliet, and I'm from way eastern Iowa. So we grew up about 2 hours and 15 minutes apart. So he's a little older than me. But he's
okay. Yeah. Well, it surprised me actually when you told me you'd been coaching 20 years, because I was like, wow, I didn't realize Coach Drink was that old. But
I'm getting there. I just turned 40 this year, unfortunately.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah,
40 is a bad number, man. That's like a rebranding.
I'm telling you,
good.
Your 40s are awesome, and then when you get to the next one, you absolutely don't care what anyone thinks. So it really gets fun. So it only gets better. Trust me. So Coach Monken could probably tell you that himself. So anyway, we had the opportunity to speak with Coach Thatcher yesterday, and I know you guys knew each other a little bit prior to him coming in. Can you describe a little bit about how that relationship's going to work between the two of you, and as well as Coach Worley being given the new title as well of running game coordinator? Kind of, obviously, I'm sure you don't have all the specifics ironed out yet, but how's that collaboration going to kind of work between the three of y'all?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty unique situation. So I've known Coach Thatcher now for what would be probably three and a half years. So it was actually kind of a long story. So when I was the head coach at Kansas Wesleyan University, the Nebraska Kearney job had come open. And I had some conversations with them about the head coaching job there. And I kind of looked into it, and I think they had won something like 1 or 2 games over 4 years. And it was kind of in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska, in an incredibly difficult conference. And I just didn't really see a path that someone could be successful there. So I stayed at Kansas Wesleyan, I think, for maybe 1 more year. I got hired at Army, one of the two. But I always then all of a sudden Kearney started winning a lot and running the ball like crazy and spreading the ball all over, and their quarterback was putting up unbelievable numbers. And I just started thinking to myself, I'm like, what are they doing that has created this? I didn't think you could win there, and they were doing it, long story short. So I lucked out where our old offensive line coach, Sanga Tuatele, when he and I were here in 20, I think this was right before COVID. Yeah, right before COVID. He had known Josh Lynn, the old Kearney head coach. So we got together. Kasanga and I flew out to Nebraska and met with these guys to talk football. And I
Okay.
was just blown away, impressed with, I with how organized they were and concise and clean in the teaching and what they were trying to do and how they were doing it. So I, stayed in touch with those guys and really kind of just a huge fan and admirer of what they had been able to do. So that had been, so I had a chance to know Coach Lynn and Coach Thatcher prior to Drew's arrival here, and that I knew scheme wise and systematically they would be a really good fit for what Coach Monken was really wanting to do.
Very cool. That's some really good history and good detail that I don't think a lot of us were aware of. So that's really good stuff. Yesterday when I spoke with Coach Thatcher, he helped kind of put to bed, I think, some of the concerns that some of the fan base had with the transition, right? You see the new offense, the new look. If you've been online like we have studying your offense at Kansas Wesleyan and his offense at Nebraska Kearney, it's clearly a little more wide open, which I think people like. But, Army football is always going to have to outrun the other team and, be the more physical team and play ground and pound to some degree. And Coach Thatcher, he even brought up the team culture and Coach Monken's culture of being last of the hard and always being the more physical team. And I think he did a really good job of dispelling kind of some of the concerns that people had that we were maybe getting a little too finesse with this new look. Right.
So here's the thing.
What he told me basically was, look, we're still going to need to run the ball to win. It's just going to be a better way to get our playmakers in space and get them the ball in some different situations. We specifically were talking a little bit about Isaiah Alston, Tyrell Robinson, some of those guys. With that being said, can you elaborate a little bit on the offensive philosophy that you guys are going to implement? And that, how that'll actually help Army's offense score more points while still controlling the clock and playing ground and pound, right? There's always that give and take. I know Coach Monken, I've interviewed him plenty of times, and he always says, Joe, if we could score on every single play, we would. Understood. But if you can't score on every single play, how do you keep the defense rested and just keep beating the other team and winning the fourth quarter?
Sure. So there's a couple, I guess, because I was the same way. Like for the longest time, I had my whole pedigree and background had been, I guess this is more to the fan base, because this is, if I was talking to the casual fan, this is what I would explain as I learned it throughout my coaching career. So I had been born and raised in like I formation, two back, run the ball all through high school, college, early coaching.
Yeah.
When you said the word spread to me, that was a bad word. That was like 1990s BYU, 4 wide receivers,
right?
Throw it every play, can't block anybody. There's like misconceptions associated with it. Crazy. And then once you start getting into when you hear teams like when Urban Meyer was at Florida,
right?
And Mullen and those guys were there. They had, I don't know, 8 guys run for over 500 yards in one season, where it's really that there's some things that have happened in the last 15 to 20 years of college football that have changed the way that the game itself is played offensively. So where you used to see people use like different personnel packages and formations and plays specifically back in like what you would think of as like old school conventional pro style or triple option football, there have been rule and personnel changes to where now you can do things where you utilize like tempos or space as a resource the way you used to use certain formations or personnel packages.
That makes sense.
So for example, like if you're playing a really, really good team, there's substitution rules in place now, where if you're playing a really good team and they've got a first round draft pick, I'll use us, for example. If you were playing Army and Andre Carter runs out of the game to get a drink of water, or his glove tears or something, the offense can push a tempo and not change personnel and keep him off the field.
Right.
So you either burn a timeout or the game comes to a complete stop. That's the first time you're allowed to put him back in.
Yeah.
There's certain things like that you can do to manipulate situations in the course of a game to help you. So it's just more dynamic ways to where, I used to talk about this all the time, where really college football forever had been, if you think of the Jeff Monken teams and the Tom Osborne teams, where if you did this with a pitch, the guy was about 5 yards away from you. And because it was done like this, it counted as a rushing statistic.
Right.
Now, people are doing the same thing where they come off the mesh. The only difference is instead of doing this, they do this.
Bro,
the guy's 15 yards away, and now it counts as a passing statistic. So there's elements of it that you have to, if you do RPOs or zone read option like Rich Rodriguez teams, which is much closer to what we will be. So you're not going to see USC and TCU type football from us, I don't think.
Right.
The biggest thing to understand is it's the culture and the physicality and the running the ball is a first priority. It's not specific to Army. It's specific to teams that win and Jeff Monken. Those are pieces of who he is, how he believes in you, and how you win games. That if you look across the board at every level, those are things, that commonalities that all really successful teams and offenses are able to do. These are just it'll just be a different look of how you're able to do those things continuously. So it'll be, Coach Thatcher is going to call all of it. It's going to be his system. Once we get through install, you kind of figure out like, all right, well, this fits us, this doesn't. We need to do this because of who we are, or hey, maybe we could add this piece in. You want to iron that stuff out between now and the start of the season, obviously. And then because we're not a transfer portal school like everybody else, you can't, it's not like you flip a switch on and all of a sudden it just all of a sudden flips and you take all the same personnel. So as you continue to transition personnel closer to what you can recruit through a couple cycles of ideally what you want to be, that's where we're still going to be able to maintain some of our older identity that Coach Monken teams are, really associated with. Where now, in our opinion, as long as we keep those pieces really simple and consistent for the players, that's one of those things like I refer to as the simplicity paradox. It's really it's really easy for us. It is incredibly difficult to prepare for and game plan again. So that's balancing all of those. We're lucky because we got a lot of smart coaches in the room, and a really good head coach who will keep us aligned and on the right tracks. And like I said, the biggest thing is we want to take who we are and what we do well and really streamline it to let the kids play faster and meaner and more violent and more consistent.
Yeah, Coach Thatcher really highlighted that yesterday as well when I talked to him, that, being able to utilize the talent that Army has now that was maybe built for a little bit of a different system and kind of slowly transition to more of getting the type of athlete you guys want over time for the scheme. But in the meantime, being able to tailor your scheme for what's currently at West Point and has been developed over the last couple of years.
Yeah, to me, there are three questions every really good offensive coordinator or staff can go through, and they have to answer at all times. What do you need to do to win? What does your staff have the knowledge and time to teach? Who are your best 11 players, and what do those guys do well? To me, if you can consistently answer those three questions, and this is the why we're doing it, that to me, you're in really, really good shape. You're putting your program and your kids in a position to be really successful.
So that brings me to my follow-up question, Matt. That's a really good point. Talking about your third question there, who are our best 11 players and what do you need to do to help them succeed and help them, lead towards the win? Specifically, since you were a tight ends coach, and we know you love the fullback as well. That's a well-known fact in Army football. How do you see like a Jacoby Buchanan or Tyson Riley or some of your tight ends fitting into this new look?
Yeah, so Jacoby's an interesting guy because everyone just assumes he's just a grinder because he weighs a lot. I mean, he's just a dense, to me, he's like a Jerome Bettis in the sense of he's a very skilled runner. I mean, when you watch him, his skill set, his vision, his feet, his hips, he's a very, very talented runner. He just happens to be a bigger guy.
Right.
So to me, he's going to have no problem with the transition whatsoever. Guys like him and Tyson Riley, Josh Lingenfelter, the tight end, in my opinion, he's as good as there is period in college football.
Yeah, please. Sorry for the interruption, Coach. Please tell me you guys are going to get the ball Lingenfelter more often. All year long, that was like I was like, he's open. Please throw him the football.
That's the cool thing about Josh is if he doesn't touch the ball once in the whole game and it's because it helps us win, he's the happiest person on the whole team, and it's sincere about it. So, though we're really lucky that, we've got some big, long guys up front and some really, really good inside the box players. And, obviously at Army, it's easy to recruit really good running backs. We've got a stable of good backs that really we think can play in really any kind of system. Like you take a kid like Tyson Riley, he can play Isaiah Austin, Casey Reynolds. There's some really, really good players that can play in any kind of system that you need to. So it'll be getting, as Coach Thatcher really gets more acclimated with the kids, and boy, Tyson really runs this play series really well, or Jacoby can do this, or boy, you want to line Lingenfelter off the ball and motion him around and match him up against linebackers, or maybe you want to split him out and let him block safeties or catch the ball in the perimeter, or put him in line and down block on DNs. That's to me is where you kind of find the sweet spot of the bat, where you can really, you want to start hitting some of these things over the fence as far as what you're going to carry. So I think what's really important for us when we start, one of the biggest benefits from a coaching standpoint of being simple, really, really simple and concise, is the comprehension level of the players goes through the roof. Yep. So when they do that, they can not only do more things, they can play more positions. So if they understand what the picture looks like holistically, they can do a lot of different things, from personnel packages to create matchups that you want, or numeric matchups that you want. So that's really, really beneficial from a simplicity standpoint. But I think it's really critical for us offensively as a staff, once kind of the, January recruiting settles down, we have to go in and say, okay, going into spring ball, or reverse engineered, coming out of spring practice, we really want to have accomplished these things. We want to major in these things. We want to make sure we've got this down, whether it's sets of drills, personnel packages, developing depth here, building a system that, we don't want to just kind of like throw it all against the wall and see what fits. That's not really, we want to funnel it and streamline the system to where when the kids come back in the summer, after they get some time off, we can really hit the ground running where we've got a really solid, good foundation.
Great. And my wrap-up question, Coach, is kind of based on everything you just talked about. You hit on the fact that the simplicity of learning the offense for the kids, the ability to get the best players, the most touches or the right touches at the right times in the game to create the best matchups for everybody. If you were to boil it down, what would you say is the biggest one or two advantages this new scheme is going to bring to the Army offense?
Probably, if you combine the simplicity paradox of our ability to be a no huddle gun based team that's going to still be able to run under center option and pieces of that, not just triple, but double option and some zone series, some, true flex bone principles. That's really, really hard to prepare for, I think, defensively. And it still fits who we are and what we need to do. To me, you can get more low impact touches to players. So what I mean by that is if you've got guys that maybe aren't physically humongous in stature, if they're getting tackled by corners or pushed out of bounds and single tackles out by the numbers, you can get more and more touches to those people because it's not anywhere near as taxing on their bodies throughout practices or games throughout the course of the year. So I think it gives you an opportunity to keep your perimeter skill players healthier longer.
That is sorry for the interruption. That's huge.
Yeah, it'll never show up like on a statistical sheet, or you'll never really, if you're a big Army football fan, you'll start to probably see and feel that difference. And then to me, one of the biggest assets for us is going to be recruiting. If a major Division I quarterback, receiver, or running back, this is the place you go. Yeah. You can go to a regular, conventional college, and that's great, but they're going to recruit from the portal every year, kids to take your job. You're going to come here, you're going to get developed as a person, developed as a football player, be around the most unbelievable people on the face of the earth. You're going to get a tier 1 education, a future that nowhere else in America can prepare you for. And you're going to play an exciting, versatile, fun brand of football that the other 2 academies don't appear to be committed to. It's, so now if you're an academy level player and you were really looking at all 3 academies, well, now if you're a quarterback, this is where you want to go.
Yeah.
If you're the best quarterback, if you're the best receiver, you're the best running back, you're the best tight end, this is the system you want to come play in now. So that will start to, I think, swing the pendulum a little bit, tip the scales a little bit in our favor recruiting wise. That should be hopefully for us, a big advantage. Now, the other 2 academies are great football programs, great teams, and they're going to, they're very good at what they do. So those are the advantages where it's an exciting style of play that allows you to have a lot of answers for what your kids can do really, really well, which to me is the name of the game. You don't want to, Steph Curry's a great basketball player, but you don't want to make him play in the post the whole game.
Right.
You want to have those guys do what they do really well. And this kind of gives you some more. Coach Thatcher has proven he has an ability to get, whether you got a power back or a perimeter back or a possession receiver or a home run hitter or a quarterback that can throw it on the run or a quarterback that's more of a pocket guy or runner. The system is so fluid, it can adapt to any kind of combination of those personnel, which is huge because as we recruit at West Point, we recruit nationwide, and we don't just have one box that we check for every guy.
Right.
Best players that are the right fit for not only West Point, but for Jeff Monken teams. And I think there's obviously, you can tell I'm very, very excited about this.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah,
I mean, you could definitely recruit on this, Coach Drinkall, because you're selling me on it. And I'm pretty pumped. The low impact touch thing was something I hadn't even thought of. But when you look at the amount of injuries we had to our slot backs last year, because guys like Tyrell Robinson sometimes are having to run, in the inside linebackers and nose tackles and stuff. I think if Army, I'm a 93 grad. I've been following Army football ever since the late 80s, early 90s. If Army can stay healthy, they have a really good shot at beating just about anybody. And I think that combined with the type of recruit you're going to be able to get, just like you just talked about, is going to make this one of the premier programs in the country.
What you just said, there's what changed my life forever was the 2012 Rose Bowl. Okay. That was when Oregon and Chip Kelly's team played Brett Bielema's Wisconsin team.
Right.
And I had spent a bunch of time at Wisconsin, going up there because when I was the OC at St. Ambrose, they were right up there. And Coach Bielema was my recruiting coach at Iowa. So I watched Wisconsin play in this game, and they were huddle, go slow, big, heavy personnel groupings, 12 and 22, shift, motion, all this stuff. And they won the Big Ten and went to the Rose Bowl. I watched Oregon with these chrome helmets, 1,000 miles an hour, one or two formations, breakneck tempo, flashy as can be. Well, they showed their rushing statistics side by side, and they were almost identical. They both ran 4,000 yards on the season, 55 touchdowns. Like, they were unreal at running the ball.
Right.
And it made me realize, like, everyone's trying to drive to the same destination. The kinds of the car that you drive to get there look different, but you end up getting to the same spot. So that's where in my career, I really took those two systems and thought, well, what's the best and hardest parts of each of these two things to defend, and
combine it,
holistically made them into one. So I say this, but like, people think I'm like joking when I say this, but the best part about coaching football in college outside of Division I, no one really watches it or cares. So you can try stuff.
Right. You have a lot of freedom
and work through some things, because there's not 40,000 people on a message board telling you that you're an idiot every day.
Exactly.
Like, I already know I'm an idiot. I don't need to be reminded.
I don't need to be reminded every day.
So that to me is where, if you have these pieces built in, it's such an exciting time right now because it's going to be, I'm not, I know what the schedule looks like next year. It's hard, but it's hard no matter what system you run.
Right. Exactly.
It's going to be good no matter what kinds of plays you run.
Yeah, I mean, right. Having to defend, and this is more Coach Woody's problem than your problem, but having to defend Grayson McCall and Frank Harris and all these 30-year-old quarterbacks is not easy. So, having an offense that can keep those guys off the field is huge.
The thing that I believe in too, more so than anything, is that what I'm so excited is that Coach Thatcher's quarterback play was so off the charts good, which means the system is very, very well. All the teams that win consistently, your quarterback has to be a guy, and he has to be able to be a very productive football player. And then you touched on it huge, is the teams that win consistently are not necessarily the most talented teams. They are the teams that stay healthy. And that's why people don't understand, like the NFL, which is such a quarterback heavy league.
Yeah.
All the rules are in place to protect who?
The quarterback. Yeah. Because that's the franchise.
Look at the Colts a couple of years ago, the year Peyton Manning got hurt. They went from winning 12 and 13 games a year to 2. So that matters. You know what I mean? So to me, like that's why I talked about like the perimeter, the most valuable real estate other than the end zone on a football field is from the top of the numbers all the way to the sideline, because whenever a play, the ball is being finished out beyond that landmark, it's a low impact finish. It is small people doing the tackling, or the smaller people doing the tackling, who practice it the least, who it's typically a one-on-one tackle, or you get pushed out of bounds. There's a lot of plays that end up out there where the ball,
guys just get pushed out.
Didn't even go to the ground. So to me, as many touches as you can get out there, the better off you are. So all the principles.
That's really good stuff. I haven't really heard anything on that before, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah. So, but I understand, especially the Army fan base more than anything. If you ever say the dreaded S word of spread, people just think you're.
Well, people start having PTSD from the Todd Berry West Coast offense days, and they want to hang themselves.
So West Coast is but even then, you don't even really see. There's a lot of those old offenses that you don't really see holistic, like full blown versions of them. You see the best parts of them still implemented in, and that's really what the best offenses are still doing now. Like. Option football's never gone anywhere. It's just now.
Right. It's more prevalent now, even in the NFL, than I've ever seen it. It's everywhere.
Than ever. It's just for whatever reason. So that was the hard part for me. Like when I was younger in my career, I first started being an OC. You get done with a game and you're like, we only ran for 165 yards, but we threw for 310. We must not have played very physical. We didn't run the ball great. Well, you look at it, and and you're throwing, you're spitting the ball out somewhere,
flat,
the bubble, whatever. So when I figured it out is that the SID statistics mean nothing. It's if the offensive line is blocking a called run play, those are all rushing statistics.
Right.
If you're an under center triple option team and it's 3rd and 2 and you call midline option because you think the fullback's going to carry it and the quarterback pulls it, pitches it, and you run around the edge for 18 yards, no one's pissed off that happened.
Right.
That's all.
Exactly.
So it's just, it'll be a Jeff Monken style offense. It is going to be assignment sound. It is going to be disciplined, violent, physical football. And that's pretty good anywhere you go.
Yeah.
That's a recipe to win. And that's smart. You don't get tackled for a loss. You don't turn the ball over. Those are the things that Jeff Monken's teams do really, really well. And that's why the guy is so successful.
Right. That's at the end of the day. I mean, every time we talk to him as the media, he's always highlighting the turnover statistic and the rushing yard statistic as two of the biggest keys. And like you said, I guess the rushing yard statistic may look a little different now, but like you said, if it's a run blocking play, that's most important. And it totally makes sense. And I got a really good feeling from talking to both you and Coach Thatcher yesterday that, Coach Monken's culture is firmly in place and all those principles are still going to apply, and this offense makes it even maybe easier to execute those principles. So I know I'm over time, Coach. I could talk to you about this stuff all day, literally, but I know you have recruiting and things to go do that are more important. So
the one thing I would tell you is, especially for fans to consider is, this is my own opinion, it's not what you do as much as how you do it that determines success. So like there's teams that, like, just take a defense, for example. There are even front teams, odd front teams, stack teams, over teams, under teams, cover 4, cover combination coverages, teams that play nothing but 0 or cover 1, blitz all the time, static. Like there's a million different things you can do to be successful and that have been. But to me, it's not necessarily even the plays that you run, it's how you run them. And the guy that's running the whole show is going to make sure that it is run a specific way. I mean, like when I say that the kids and the coach, like we're loyal to Jeff Monken. If he called me right now and was like, we got to burn Mikey Stadium to the ground, I'd be the first one getting a can of gas to come over here to do it. So like that guy is awesome. So like if you're a kid and you get a chance to play, you can come to West Point for the school, West Point for the football, West Point for the future. You can play for Jeff Monken. You got to play some fun system. Like to me, you're an insane person if you don't want to do that. So it's not for everybody, but it's for the guys that we want. And it is a fun, exciting place to be right now, especially in the climate of college football as it stands today. We're in the business of people, and business is good here.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for your time, Coach Drinkall. I really appreciate it. Army fans, again, this has been Joe Iacono with co-offensive coordinator Matt Drinkall. Go Army, beat Navy.